Let's see who's here. Sally is excused today. Elizabeth excused. Val, she was here earlier. Lauren, Hodge, Tom, Arena excused today. Dylan is excused. Rosita here. Schnell's here. Blaine, Josh, and Django and Ryan. Okay. I guess I thought I had an email from you that you couldn't make it. You were Bill, right? Oh, I must have skipped over you anyway. No harm done. All right. I'm going to talk about interest rate swaps today, but since today is the day, in half an hour, we're going to know. Let's look at what the market thinks at this time about what's going to happen in today's meeting. Okay, that's the meeting. 95.3625. Since I have no danger signs, basically the market thinks that it's going to be either no move or at most a move of 25. Let's see what's the probability they attach to that one. It's about 80%. I mean, it's not scientific to say so, but you can roughly think about 80% of market participants are betting on a 25 basis points move. About 20 are betting of no move. The way I'm thinking about it, because of all these banking issues, economically speaking, optimal thing to do is not to do anything. Okay, at least for the SVB and to some extent Signature Bank, the culprit behind these collapses was high interest rates. At least the apparent culprit. The real culprit is a regulatory breakdown because of the changes in the laws. At least that's my opinion. Back in 2018, and B, these banks having taken too much what we call duration risk or position on a yield curve. They basically had a bet to make money from long-term treasury bonds and they were keeping those as their liquid assets, as they are liquid. When the deposit run happened, in order to cover those deposits, they had to sell those, which meant they had to actually realize the losses, and that created the need for extra capital. They couldn't find it. Boom, they go down. But if the Fed actually does nothing today, that could send the market the wrong signal. Remember, Fed knows a lot more about the health of the economy and especially the banking sector than even more sophisticated market participants. Because these guys have data from all the banks. So they have a pretty good idea. And the data that we have is pretty much 3 months old. There's financial statements at the end of the year. And 3 months is a lifetime in the banking sector. Remember, even the healthiest banks are about 8 times leveraged. a 12% Tier 1 capital ratio is considered very healthy. And even those, if you put half of your capital into, let's say, treasury bonds, half of your assets into treasury bonds, 30 years, with a duration of roughly 18 years, a 50 basis points move would be about 9% loss on that. Overall capital wise, 4.5%. Suddenly your tier 1 capital ratio is 8%. That's borderline healthy, borderline stable. And if you realize more than 1% move, as a lot of banks did, we're talking about going down to 4 or 5%. At that point, your regulator would come in and take you over anyway. So 3 months is a lifetime for a bank like that. Because of that, if they do not increase the rates by 25 basis points, market is going to view it as a negative signal. That's why they're going to actually, in my opinion, they're going to increase it by 25. Let's see what they're thinking, assuming it's going to increase by 25 on the May meeting. I think it's on May 4th, but let's make sure. May 3rd, okay. And let's look at the May contract, 95065. Again, market is thinking either no move or 25. So what's the chance of a 25? It's about 50%. So the way market is pricing now, 80% chance of 25 in March, 50% chance of 25 in May, or alternatively combined two meetings. It's guaranteed you're going to have 25, and there's 50% chance that it could be 50. That's kind of where things are. Well, let's see. Interest rate swaps. These are contracts that allow two parties to exchange fixed interest payments with what we call floating interest payments, which are interest payments that is based on an index of short-term interest rate. Examples of index of short-term interest rates. Fed funds rate, prime rate, LIBOR, etc. Okay. I mean, you could have a suppose You borrowed 10 million and the loan charges and monthly interest rate of Fed funds rate during the month plus 5 percentage points. Depending upon your credit rating, that extra spread could be anything, or charges the prime rate, which is typically the upper end of the Federal Reserve target rate plus 3 percentage points. Currently, as of today, that target range is 450 to 475. So prime rate is 775. So if today Fed increases by 25 basis points, tomorrow prime rate is going to go up to 8% everywhere. And prime rate is pretty much the rate the banks charge to some of their best customers. So if you're a corporation borrowing for short term, you should expect to pay around prime if bank considers you one of their best customers. A lot of interest rates on things like credit cards, they're linked to prime rate. You know, if you're paying 12% now, prime rate goes up by 1%, more than likely they're going to increase it by 1%. I have a home equity loan, 2 home equity loans from UK Federal Credit Union that I got in 2015. One of them is prime -1 with a 4% minimum. The other is prime +1. So since that 4% minimum doesn't apply anymore, on average, I'm paying prime. At that point, my credit score was over 750. So I was able to get stuff like that. If I borrowed now, I would probably pay prime +5 or something. So you can, a lot of borrowing, corporate borrowing, unless it's a bond, is actually variable rate borrowing or floating rate borrowing. LIBOR is the most commonly used rate index, which is short for London Interbank or Interbank Offered Rate. There is a consortium of banks called LIBOR Consortium. These are, the number varies, but it's about 20 to 30 over the years. 20 to 30 largest banks that does transactions in London money markets. Every day they announce a rate that says, if you're one of these banks in the LIBOR consortium, and if you want to borrow from me, this is the rate I'm going to charge you. And it could be overnight LIBOR, 7-day, 1 month, 3 months, what have you. So I'm Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse was one of the LIBOR banks, and I'm going to borrow from, let's say, Barclays, and I'm going to look at Barclays rate, and that's the rate at which I can borrow from Barclays, and vice versa.